Welcome to Law Subscribed. This is your dedicated news source for all things subscriptions in the law. My name is Matthew Kurbis. I'm the subscription attorney, and I believe subscriptions can help bridge the access to justice gap and incentivize attorneys to modernize and scale their practice like never before. On this show, I interview lawyers ditching the billable hour and experts who can help attorneys move beyond billing time. Thanks to my sponsors, 650 and Gavel. Links to both in the show notes. More on them later, and use the code LAWSUBSCRIBED when signing up. You get 10% off, and it supports the show. The best way to support the show is to share it with someone you know. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and nothing said is legal, ethical, or financial advice. Without further delay, here's the episode. I'm thrilled to have with me today another attorney leveraging the subscription model, Scott Reib. Welcome to the podcast.
Matthew, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, I'm thrilled you came on and that some of your folks reached out because you're the perfect kind of guest we like for the show. And while I've had a chance to dive into what you're doing and look at your website and such, which, by the way, reiblaw.com, link in the show notes. Go ahead and introduce yourself to my listeners.
Yeah, I've been practicing law for 27 years, which is kind of hard to believe. Litigated for the majority of that time. Have been a partner in several firms. In fact, my last W-2 paycheck was 97. And so learned a lot along the way. And in 2005, started my own solo firm. And in 2011, 2012, kind of realized I had a problem. I was having a lot of repeat business with clients making the same dumb mistakes. And the mistakes were they weren't asking me questions about for their deals before they made them. And so I kind of did a deep dive on what's the problem? Is it me? Do they not like me? Do I have a personality problem? What's going on? And I really came to the conclusion that it wasn't me, thankfully. It was my business model, which was the traditional bill by the hour. So every 6 minutes they're getting billed. And so they'd see money flying out of their pocket. And so I had this vision for an on-demand system for small business owners where they could ask me every dumb question in the world and not get billed additional charges for it. They would have their LLCs done right, their contracts done right. They'd never sign a contract again and regret it because they hadn't had it reviewed. And so I started hunting for a coach to help me build it because I had no idea how to do it. And went through a couple and finally found one that understood my vision. Clay Clark in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Shout out to Clay. And he's like, oh yeah, I get that and I can help you do it. And so we started August of 2012 building what's now the Access Plan. And then I started shifting my practice from hourly to subscription or flat fee. We still do flat fee projects or some things aren't included in the subscription. And so then we do flat fees, and we're able to take the firm to 7 figures doing that model.
Yeah. I'm curious, is this Clay Clark? Are they an attorney?
No, he is just a business coach, but he's kind of a visionary, and he understood it. Like part of my inspiration, it's kind of silly, but it was the Dollar Shave Club. I was like, if you can sell razors that way, why? Surely I can figure a way to sell legal services. If people are willing to spend $20 a month to have razors shipped to them, why they must like that model. And so that was part of the inspiration.
Yeah, that's great. And you know, I've had 100 of these interviews now, and I think you're the first person to bring up Dollar Shave Club, but that's a great analogy because you think it was a thing for years. People would only buy it when they needed it. And then you would never think to, hey, subscribe to razors. I mean, now we subscribe to so many things. But yeah, I think taking us back 12 years ago or so is when Dollar Shave Club was really starting to take off. And that's I think that's fantastic because, the problem with lawyers, all my audience are lawyers, but they're the good ones, is that we're stuck in this business model mindset of billing time. And so being able to look outside our business model, in particular back in 2012, when so few attorneys were leveraging subscriptions or ditching the billable hour, I mean, that's where you had to look. You had to look outside of the profession, and that Clay Clark was there and kind of got it is great. I'm not surprised to hear he's not an attorney. Because there were so few. What other options? Where else did you go, Scott, to discover, to figure out how to do it, or was it just you and Clay?
It was just me and Clay. I mean, I was Googling everything I could try to find, and I really couldn't find any lawyers doing what I was doing to be able to call them and say, hey, show me how you're doing it. It just kind of, if it existed, it was under the radar, and I couldn't find it. And so we just had to make it up. And so we would, we kind of did a cost analysis of the different services I want to provide and what it would cost to provide it. so we could figure out the pricing model, and then kind of backed into what the plans would look like. And originally, I think I had 5 different levels. It's changed a lot over the years, but he was a business coach, so he understood how businesses operated. He understood what they were kind of looking for and how to sell to them. And so he helped me create the plan, the marketing, the sales script, and then we went to market.
We love pricing on the Law Subscribe podcast, and I'm just curious to know, even though it's maybe less relevant, but I'm interested. Did Clay charge you by the hour, or did Clay charge you like a monthly subscription?
No, it was a monthly subscription. Yeah, and I had other people, and that was the other part of it, is that this business coaching thing was kind of really becoming big, and everyone was paying them by the month.
Yeah,
and so I'm like, so people are used to doing that, and so part of the way I sold the access plan and was kind of to people that had business coaching is like, okay, this is an add-on to that, because they can't do this for you. And I even had coaches that would sell it for me and then just send me the client, and then we just added on.
Yeah. And so I'm looking at your website right now. I've got it pulled up. So when you click on that access, the plan, I love you click on access plan tab. It's reeblaw.com/access. I love the quote, tired of hoping your business is protected, because let's be real. Like, most business owners, in particular the small ones, legal is the last thing they're worried about, and they're just hoping everything goes right and nothing goes wrong, right? And they don't want to talk to their lawyer because of, the clock starts ticking, right? So that's some great marketing. Now, did you get to that kind of like a pitch right away, or like what was the journey of figuring out how to sell and explain ongoing legal services to clients?
I had a pretty good pitch right away because of Clay, and he understood how, like I said, how to market and sell coaching to them. And I basically call myself a legal coach. I'm not just doing legal work for people. We're doing consulting, and we're showing them how to make better decisions, how to ask better questions, why we do it this way. I don't want them just to do it this way. I want them to understand what they're doing. And so it kind of worked from the beginning, but we've definitely gotten better at the messaging as we've gone through the years. I mean, like I said, we've been doing it 12 years, so it's flown by. But the major shift that everyone has to make is they have to go from treating law firms as emergency rooms to primary care, and it's a major shift. And right now, I think you're crazy if you don't shift to this model. When I did it, I was crazy because there was no market for it. No one was looking for a subscription lawyer. Now people are looking for it. They've heard about it. They want someone that they can count on. They want that peace of mind knowing that with a phone call, that you're there. And so now it's much easier to sell. 12 years ago, you would talk about a subscription program for legal, and they would look at you like you're crazy.
Yeah, I want to pull on that legal coaching thread, because a lot of the conversation we'll have on the show is about the multi-jurisdictional practice of law, and how with like a transactional fractional GC type thing that you have, that I have, that some other lawyers have, how does that play in when you're not doing, trademarks like a federal practice, right? Or immigration like a federal practice, because we've had a subscription, leveraging lawyers who are in those practice areas. Well, that's a no-brainer. But for business law, for state law, have you handled multi-jurisdictional practice when you're a legal coach or legal consultant? Is that a separate business entity, and you're like doing you're like not actually providing legal advice, or how are you handling that problem?
Yeah, we do have a separate entity for our consulting, but we also do trademark law. So we do a lot of intellectual property stuff for our clients, because I find it's one of the biggest problems they have is that they haven't built a brand that they can actually own, and they end up down the road they've climbed the ladder of success and it's leaning on someone else's brand. And so we do that. And so that opens up a lot of doors for me. But basically we do all of our business out of Texas. I'm licensed in Oklahoma and Texas. I have lawyers that are also licensed in other jurisdictions. And I add every year or two, I'll be adding another state to my thing. But the clients understand that we work here. If they need something state specific, then we will find a lawyer for them. We will quarterback it and take care of it for them.
So I'm scrolling down now on the access plan page, and I see that you are in the small group of us lawyers who actually put pricing on our websites. So happy to find another member of that club. We're a small club, but we're out there. And so, these podcast episodes get published, quite a ways out. So pricing always subject to change, but you do put your pricing on there. And I'm curious to know, and you could use numbers if you want. I try not to because I know I want these episodes to be as evergreen as possible. But you've got some low prices for your launch plan, right? So you've got 4 plans: launch, expansion, momentum, and guardian, right? And they go up in price in that order. Are these prices that you've had set, that you've been working for 12 years, or have they changed over the last 12 years, and how?
They've changed over the last 12 years quite a bit. They're much higher than they were initially, because initially I was kind of scared to put a higher price on them. And then the Guardian plan's actually brand new. That's a this year plan. And we've already sold 3 of them because we're just getting into a little more sophisticated market.
Mm-hmm.
But we play around every year. I kind of look at it and decide, what are we included? What are we not including? What's maybe stopping someone from coming on board? Is there something that's not included in here that would just make it irresistible? And so we'll kind of tweak the features of each plan and the pricing a little bit. I think we've landed on a pretty good path this year with the four levels, and it's based on the stage of business they're in. And in my sales calls, it's much easier to explain them that way, because it's really, this is where you are in business after I've asked enough questions. You're still in launch mode, and this is what you need, and this fits your needs. And then I look forward to helping you grow to where you're ready for momentum. But right now you just need to be in this launch plan. And at some point we'll cap out on launch because it's profitable, but it's not as profitable as the other plans. And so, I really want people in the momentum and expansion level. The Guardian's great to have a few of. I don't want a lot of those either. It's, they require a lot more work and handholding.
Yeah.
I was a part of a mastermind group, in 2017 with Alexis Neely, and she was teaching a group of law firm owners how to create subscription models, and invited me to be a part of it. And she was teaching everyone to create plans where it was basically, you had one level. It's, let's just say $3,000 a month. You're trying to find 10 to 15 clients that'll pay you $3,000 a month. And she was very frustrated by my plan because it was so much lower pricing tiers. And she wanted me to come up, and I just kept pushing back and saying, well, I was the only one that really had any clients, but it was like, this is working for me. And the reason I have launch is because I'm on a mission to help small business owners grow and protect their businesses. And if I price it at $3,000 a month, I'm leaving out so many people, and I don't want to do that. I want them to be able to come in as they're starting their business, have access to the right information at the right time, so they can make better decisions to get to that next level. And so I pushed back, and eventually she's like, yeah, you're right. It's working for you. Just keep doing it. Because the other problem I had is, if you built it all on $3,000 a month, if you lose one, that's big. If I lose a launch client, okay, there's 1 or 2 coming every month. Right. If I churn in that level, it's not that big of a deal. You have much churn at $3,000 a month, and that's a big change in your cash flow. And so that's the other reason I did that.
Yeah, and I just want to chime in to highlight that that's an important mindset that you have there, because if you can't just take subscription economy philosophy and ideas and apply it directly to law, right? Where you want to reduce churn to 0. Well, not necessarily when you're a service provider, right? And some churn is absolutely acceptable, exactly sort of what you're talking about, right? And like my subscriptions start at $20 a month. Like I want to, the goal is to get them up to higher subscription levels by being available to them, just like you said, to help them get to that point in their business or their life or wherever they are where a higher subscription makes sense, because now they understand the value of not having to do all the legal work themselves. And if they didn't have a lawyer, or a lawyer was going to cost them all their money as they're starting their business, which a lot of lawyers do. Like, I think angel round investments, like most of it goes to the lawyer for the billable hour fees.
Lawyers.
Yeah, now they're going to be around for a lot longer, and the likelihood of turning a launch client into a momentum, into an expansion client significantly increases. And so you're expanding the client pool for yourself by bringing them in at such a low level. And I think I'm trying to do that too. There's so few, even like lawyers using subscriptions, who are viewing it from that perspective. More and more of us are, but that's another thing I just wanted to highlight for the audience. That's something that you're doing.
Yeah, and then I just published my book, The Shutter-Proof Entrepreneur, a month ago. And so to try to reach the people that can't even afford my $425 a month, so that they have the ability to start getting that information, get into my ecosystem. We have the podcast, and then I speak as many stages as I can possibly get on to spread the gospel that there's a different way of doing legal, and that it's important for them to be thinking about that as they're building their business instead of coming back 5-10 years later and then trying to prop it up. Let's get it right from the beginning. Let's get a solid foundation.
Right. Now, there's another thing you do with your pricing. Like I said, we love talking pricing here, that I think I've only seen one other lawyer leveraging subscriptions doing, and that is you do have an initiation fee. So tell me, what was behind the initiation fee? And is it truly just like a one-time on their first month, they pay that fee? And then, how is that worked for you?
Well, if they can't afford the initiation fee, they're probably not a good fit. That means they don't have enough profit margin in their business to afford to do what we're doing. The other thing is that we do quite a bit of work up front, trying to make sure that they've usually always have something that's already been done. They've got an LLC that they've formed on legal whatever, and they've got contracts that they've downloaded from somebody or copied from somebody. And so we end up doing quite a bit of work right there in that first 30, 60 days to kind of bring them up to level. And so I just found that sometimes we would do that work and lose people, and it kind of made it not as profitable. But by doing the initiation fee, it ensures that even if someone quits, I'm still able to maintain a profit margin. By the second year, I don't need it. But that first year, and I used to have it it was basically month to month, and we've gone now to, you have to make a 12-month commitment.
I mean, so I've talked a lot about on this podcast the benefits to the lawyer and the client of month to month. So tell me more then about why you moved to 12-month commitment.
If they're willing to, if up front they understand their 12-month commitment, and they're okay with that, then I know they've got a long-term mindset. Because I've seen a lot of people that'll come in they really like what we do for them, but they think their mindset is that we can fix this all in a few months and then I can leave. They haven't really made that paradigm shift. There's something going on in their business that they want help with. And so they're willing to pay for a little while. And I can help by having the commitment. I can figure those people out a lot easier on the base call and just say, that's not how we work. So if you're wanting in and out, we're not your firm. Yeah. We don't even work with, if you're a business owner and you call me and say, hey, I'm going to buy a business. Will you do it for me? We'll offer them our access packages, and they can pick which one fits their current level. If they don't want to become a member, we don't do the project. I'm not looking, it's not about the money for me. It's about the long-term relationship, and then the money is in the lifetime value of the client, not in the transaction.
Yeah. So I think for me then, hearing that, it's like you have your ideal client or clients, your client avatar or profile or, whatever, choose your synonym.
Yeah.
And that involves somebody who's going to be on it long-term. And that's just businesses at their particular stages. And that's it. And you're not looking for other kinds of clients. And so the kinds of clients who would come on and off is just not your client profile that you're going after. Did I have that right?
Right. And so the initiation fee is, kind of Michael Port's red rope policy, that if that's part of keeping people out that shouldn't be in the ecosystem, is if they don't want to pay an initiation fee. And I cannot remember the last time I had an objection to it.
Yeah. I mean, because I don't have, for my high ticket subscribers, I don't have any churn issues. Because once they get to that level, they fully appreciate the value of offloading their legal stuff to a fractional GC. For my individuals or my solopreneurs, like the freelancer solopreneur levels, they'll come on and off. And you know what? I'm fine with that, because realistically for me, I'm a true solo. And I do want to know the size of your practice. But I'm a true solo. So if somebody comes on and off, first of all, I know they're not going to other lawyers, in particular in Illinois, because I'm the most affordable lawyer in Illinois. So I know they're not going to other lawyers, and I make it really easy to unsubscribe and resubscribe on a monthly basis, because I'm going to let them determine their own cash flow and all of that. And I want them to be able to come back easily. But that's sort of that market. It makes sense for the solopreneur kind of a thing. But you're not targeting solopreneurs. So it's just a different market. So for my audience who are longtime listeners, I just want to say that there's no one right way to do it. And I think there's no contradiction with how you're doing it and how I'm doing it. It's just about the target market that you're looking to serve.
Well, and we have a lot of solopreneurs in the program.
Okay.
They're doing a lot of business. And they're solopreneur because they don't have employees. They've got vendors, they've got virtual assistants, they've got teams they're managing, they're just not employees, and so they still kind of fit that model, but they're doing high ticket coaching programs to where it really matters that the documentation is right, and those people come on and usually stay.
Yeah, and there's the legal ethics of it all, which there's no legal ethics advice provided on this podcast. But you think you're able to lock people into the 12 months? Like, what happens if they want to get out, right? And do you have to refund them, or like, there's other issues that arise when you're a law practice? Like, is this where the coaching, the legal consulting coaching business comes in, because it's not a law firm, it's a legal coaching business? Like how do you, is that part of it? How are you handling the legal ethics of it all without obviously giving any legal ethics advice?
Yeah. We haven't ever, in 12 years, I've never run into anybody that wanted a refund. And the 12-month commitment, it does, if it's for cause, then there's an out for them immediately. It's just what we've set out to do, but it has not been an issue. I've looked at that and considered that it could be a problem. I don't like to charge people annual fees. I do occasionally, but I don't like to do that because that's where to me the risk is.
Yeah.
But
okay,
we've not had the problem. But I've seen that it's possible. But I hate to look at the actual number that have been through our program in 12 years. We're probably running up to 1,000 that have been in and out of our program over the last 12 years, and I've never had anyone ask me for payback. I've also never had a chargeback. I'm not going to wood over here.
Yeah, knock away. Yeah, okay. So even if you're locking them in then to a year, you're not having any fees paid in advance, and I suppose that is the best way to approach that kind of a thing.
Right.
Go ahead.
And if someone really wanted out, I'm not going to sue them. So it's really more of a mindset test for me, is that they understand that they're in for a year. If someone wants out, they're going to be out. I mean, all they had to do is tell their credit card company not to pay me anymore, and it's over. So I know that it's like, if they want out, and I also don't want someone that is in the program and not liking it, because they're likely to spread the word that there's a problem, and then that will hurt me more than keeping them.
Right. So then another question I have for you on these levels are, do you do in-betweeners? So like, if somebody really is sort of in between launch and momentum, are you going to offer them a middle package, or you're like, no, like there are these levels for a reason, you're ready for the next level?
I hate to say never, but no, pretty much we follow the levels.
Okay. All right. And then, and something else for like people who've watched my CLE, I have different category. Oh, yes, please elaborate.
Can I follow up on that?
Yes.
Part of the reason is because I don't want to be solo. And so I'm trying to scale this, and I don't want to be the one doing the sales calls. And so it needs to be very franchise-like, to where these are the 4 things we do. These are the prices. There's no variants. We can't go ask the manager, this is it, if you want. And because otherwise it creates this problem where I'm back in the bottleneck, where they're coming to me and say, can we do a custom plan for this person? And so I can't run it that way.
Right. So then what is the size of your firm right now, and what's the ideal growth for you?
Yeah, I've got 3 full-time employees that are not lawyers. And then I have 3 contract lawyers that do the lion's share of the legal work. I occasionally will jump on a project because I want to, because it's something that interests me, or it's like, hey, this needs to really be turned around fast, and I know I can do it the fastest. I'm working towards not being that person anymore. We're at right around 100 members this month. I'd like to be around 200, 250. I think that's a pretty sweet spot for me. And to do that, I would need to have 10, what we call Reib Law preferred providers. And so it's just a matter of kind of growing and finding the people that fit our culture, and then that want to work. It's still hard. It's hard to find people that want to work.
Well, when they don't have to build their time, I have to imagine it's a little bit easier. And you're talking about, I realize the caseload is different per client, but you're talking about 30 to 34, clients per of your attorneys, your provide, the lawyers that work for you. That's a reasonable expectation of, like, I used to do insurance defense work. And I mean, there would be times where I had close to 60 cases I was managing. Right. And so, are you And something else I just want to point out is you said you could get the work done faster. Now, if a billable hour lawyer hears that, they're going to be like, well, why would you ever want to work on that? You're making less money. You're working faster. It's like, no, the inverse relationship is true when you're not billing your time. The quicker the work gets done efficiently and effectively, the more money you make, right?
Yes. And which causes another problem, because then you get everyone working fast. And so I have to very often tell my team that slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? Because I don't want to go fast and then turn out and be handing junk to the clients. So you gotta, so there is a balancing there, but you're totally right on the philosophy that the faster we can deliver quality work, the more profitable it is and the more we can do. And to kind of follow up on the way I'm staffing it, we manage, I have an access coordinator that kind of is our air traffic controller, because that's the biggest deal we have, is managing all the traffic. We'll have, on any given moment, we'll have 130 active projects in the system to work. And then she assigns those to the different providers to work. She's also a paralegal, so some of those she can work on and then get them to the lawyer to review. But she directs the traffic, and that's what makes it all work.
Yeah, and so this, frankly, is a rare opportunity for me to have an employer of other lawyers leveraging this model on the podcast, because a lot of us using the model are solos, or if we have employees that are not other lawyers. And so I'm curious to know, from a compensation perspective, obviously without selling what you're paying, but like, is for lawyers, for law firms that compensate their lawyers, and one of the metrics that they track is hours billed and hours realized for, like, how are they, should I give them a pay raise? What should their bonus be? Like, what are metrics you use? Do they get like a percentage of the subscription of the clients they're working on on a pro rata basis based on how often they're work? Like, what's your metrics that you're using to make sure your attorneys are compensated fairly and bonused fairly?
It's kind of ironic, but they actually charge me by the hour. So it's by the hour. We've got them set up to where if they touch the file, the minimum is an hour. So I'm not wasting their time, and they're not having to keep track of every 6 minutes, because I don't want that for anybody. But we do it with hourly rates for them. And most of the people that work for us have other jobs, or they've got their own small firm and they just can't stay busy enough. Mm-hmm. And so we fill in a gap for them. And we've had people come in for a year and then that was enough, and then they moved on. But right now, the team, I've got one new person, and then the other two have been with us now for 4 years. Wow. And they really like our model, and so they like being a part of it. But they just send us an invoice every 2 weeks by noon on Tuesday, and then we pay them.
So then you're not going through like a third party provider, like a law clerk type thing, or have you tried any of that stuff?
Haven't done any of that yet. It's all people I have interviewed and vetted, had them do a project to see how they work, and then make sure, because they do talk to our clients. They don't just do documentation work, transactional work. So it has to be someone that I trust will handle our clients well. Mm-hmm. And so I have not done that yet. We've talked about it, and it would be a way to scale faster.
Right. Man, and you got to stop having them bill you by the hour for the work that they're doing. Like, you and I need to have an off-call strategy session how to make that work. I mean, I have plenty of suggestions I could give you, but I sort of tipped my hat to one of them on, when I asked you the question earlier on how, and percentage of the subscription revenue of the months that they're working on the client, I think might be it will certainly incentivize them wanting to do more work for you, and even bring in subscribers if you give them maybe a higher percentage, right? So, I want to stay a true solo, but even as I think about outsourcing to independent contractors, which I'm going to have to do at some point, that's how I've been thinking about it, is like, maybe I just give them a percent of the monthly revenue for the clients that they're working on, because it's easy. I know I'm not going to not be bringing in enough revenue to pay them, because it's directly tied to the subscription clients that they're working on. Yeah. So
because there's lots of ways to do it. I'd love to hear what you're thinking, because that would probably be helpful.
Yeah. So you mentioned, or maybe I can't remember if you mentioned this in the very beginning or if you mentioned it on our pre-show just 5-minute chat, but you're also just doing flat fee work. So,
Yep.
how does that fall into these subscription plans? Do they have to be a subscriber to get access to that flat fee work? And it sounds like maybe they do, because you don't just do an M&A transaction for the sake of doing an M&A transaction. So
Yeah.
how do you handle the
They
flat fee
they
work that
do.
you do?
Yeah, they do this starting in 2024. They have to be an access member. And so before we would do projects, and my hope was always I could convince them to become a member by doing excellent work, and I didn't find that to be true. So now if you want to be a part of our ecosystem, you join it, and then we can take care of your transactional work, because there are things that just don't quite fit in the packages. And so we have those things like trademarks, like you mentioned, M&A stuff. Buy sell agreements aren't in most of the packages, but a lot of our people need them, and so that's just an add-on. And so we just figure out what we think it will cost us to do the work, add some profit margin on there, and charge them a flat fee. And occasionally I lose money. It definitely happens. But I just decided when I did this model, I decided that I should have to price myself the way they do, and they have to know what their services cost to deliver. So why shouldn't I? And so anything we do is either flat fee or subscription, other than a couple of the lingering litigation files that we've got. And I've done a few subscription stuff on that. It's just not where I want to go. But yeah, we'll do those flat fees, and I'll involve the preferred providers on those projects in the cost on them. And so I'll go to them and say, hey, is this a project you'd like to take on? And if so, how much do you want for it? And then we go to a flat fee with them also, so that they can feel like they're getting paid adequately for doing the bigger project. And then I know I know what my cost is going to be, with addition of my time and maybe a little bit of cleanup time from the staff, and then we price it.
So this is interesting. So my billable hour sense is tingling. You said something that makes me think you might still be tracking your time, where you said you might lose money on something, but you still made money. So I'm curious to know why you think that. Are you still tracking your time?
I don't track my time, but there's sometimes where it's obvious, like we've spent way too much time on this. We'll in team meetings we'll talk about it, and it's like, yeah, we lost money on that project. So we can't price it that way anymore.
Yeah. So, I mean, and we'll call this a mini subscription therapy session, where like I try, because to me, that still sounds like time equals money. And your business model is already so well streamlined to be like time does not equal money. And I feel like it's not necessarily that you lost money, or it's that maybe the value of what you charged wasn't sufficient to the value that you provided. And that may be time, but it also just might be.
That's definitely a better way to say that. But we get to the end of the project and we're like, yeah, that wasn't a good project. We shouldn't have priced it that way.
Yeah, we provided way more value than what they paid us for that value, is the way that I would think about that.
Yeah, and then and then you're probably right. It's still in the back. I mean, it's hard for me. I mean, I've been doing this 27 years, and most of that I was keeping track of every 6 minutes of my time. So, especially if I get pulled into the project, I'm very aware of how much time I'm spending on it, and very sensitive to that, because I don't like it. I don't want my time being spent on projects, because I don't want to trade time for dollars.
Right. So then what are you able to then do with your time now that that's been freed up to do other things?
Yeah. So, I do this. So I'm on 2 to 3 podcasts a week, and then we have our own podcast, and then I'm speaking. I also have built a life the way I want it. So this is Tuesday. So on Tuesdays, I'm at the gym at 8. I get into the office about 9:45. On Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, I go to the gym at 9 and get to the office at 10:45. And I'm out of here. I'm usually out of here by 5. I don't take any appointments after 4 unless I've agreed to it. Like, they can't put it on my schedule. It's blocked. And so I've just kind of built a life where it's just giving me more time freedom. And we've also built it using technology to where I can do this from anywhere in the world.
Yeah. So, I see that you've integrated on your website with the schedule a call thing, Calendly. And so, speaking about scheduling calls, you set the limitations in there that you want, which is nice. What are some other technology tools that you're using, whether they're off the shelf, and if you've built anything proprietary too, let the audience know.
I wish we had. We're using Asana to manage our projects, and then that integrates through Zapier with Go High Level that we're using for most of our communications, and then also with our marketing. And that was the website we talked about isn't a Go High Level website, but the next version of it will be. But those are and then for internal communications we use Slack,
Okay. And then
and that's kind of our main.
for the powering the subscription payments, though, how are you doing that?
Just through our credit card processing. I mean, when people sign up, that initial payment's made, and then it's set up as recurring. And
Is that like, is it
the
like
biggest hassle
Chase?
with that is chasing. No, I've got a friend that I met in one of the coaching groups that I've been a part of that has one of the biggest credit card processing companies in the country, and their firm manages it for us, and it's been real nice. It's all, I mean, everyone runs them through pretty similar platforms. It's all through authorized.net platform, but it's worked great.
You want to give them some free promo right now?
I can't think what it's called.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah,
No,
we've been
that's
on it
fine.
for about 5 years.
And then
All I
something
care
else.
about the rate and the customer service.
Good. That's right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So, and whatever rate you're paying, it's worth it to make the recurring fees come through and not have to worry about it, right? So, how about AI and Gen AI? Have you been leveraging any of these tools yet? Are you looking at incorporating that? Any strategies around that technology?
Yeah, I use it regularly in my day, and then I'm slowly teaching our team members how to use it. It's amazingly helpful. It's a good start. I mean, it's a good start. If I'm doing a project, it's a good starting place for me, even just for drafting legal documents. It's crazy what I can generate by giving it the right prompts. That then makes my job so much easier than having to start from scratch if I don't already have a good template for something. Because you would think after this many years that wouldn't happen, but it still does on a regular basis. Where it's something I just don't quite have, and I can get to a working draft very quickly with AI.
And are you leveraging any legal specific tools? Are you using the free ones or the open ones out there like ChatGPT and Claude? Like what are some of your favorite ones that you're using right now?
Yeah, I'm using ChatGPT. I've got a team account because we also use it on the consulting side and on the podcast. Like I know that my podcast producer uses it to show prep for me. It's a great tool for doing some of the research and then taking the research and turning it into a show plan with questions that I can fall back on if I need them. And then I know they also use it a lot for coming up with our hooks and things for all the videos that we do. So it's used a lot. We do some, like when we're creating templates, I'll have my team run it back through ChatGPT and have it proofread it and make any recommendations for changes. And it makes it where they're not dominating our legal administrator's time, because that's very precious to her. And there's things that she can do for me that are more valuable than proofreading things. And so that's been a really cool tool.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking at other things, but that's really all that we've implemented here. I spend way too much time looking at some of that stuff, and I think it's going to be huge. And I've looked at some of the ones that are legal specific. They just didn't convince me to spend the money.
Well, I've had several guests on the podcast that are the founders of those companies. So like a lot of people know about Spellbook and like they're like a word plugin, but I'll tell you what, I use Paxton and I've had them on the podcast, and they did something really interesting, which is he talks about it a little more in his interview, but they trained their own model, a legal large language model, and they trained it on all federal and state laws. And that was before they plugged into case law and statutes, which now they do. So they're like a low-cost competitor that's frankly better, in my opinion, to Lexis and Westlaw. But even before that, just because they trained their model on all state and federal laws in the U.S., it was making it like the output was phenomenal compared to the tools that are not trained on that kind of a thing. And so I use it for everything you just said, but also a lot of legal things as well. And since it's a legal first AI, they take confidentiality really seriously. There are separate instances, so the underlying model isn't trained on client data and all that stuff, right? Yep. Are you using any, and I'd be remiss to not mention them in light of the type of work that you're doing, the sponsors of my podcast, 650 and Gavel, like are you using any automation or document database type automation platforms for the firm?
No, we're not.
Oh man, Scott, use the code LAW subscribed and save 10%. I leverage these tools in my practice and I do fractional GC work too. Like, for me, like a 650, even though they're really even better for in-house teams, attorneys using the subscription model like us, it becomes subscription arbitrage because our clients might not be willing to or able to maybe pay that subscription to 650, but we could then leverage those tools. It kind of becomes our fractional back office, because their whole job is updating the templates over time and the automations to improve the documents, like the handbooks on there that I'm able to use for my clients. Like, and whenever there's a new handbook update and there's a new change, they update their document to be compliant because it's spun out of a law firm, this company, right? And so I don't have to do that research. Now, I should still make sure that their things are correct, and I do. But over the years that I've been using them, I know that they're very reliable, right, for that kind of a thing. And with Gavel, it's build your own. And you should go and listen, because at the time of recording, I just released 2 episodes with the updates to Gavel's system and how they're incorporating Gen AI to create your automation. So if you have a template that you like, that's how you automate that template, is you use a company like Gavel. Look, there's other competitors, and I've interviewed them on the podcast. Those are 2 of my sponsors, so I can't save you 10% on the other ones. But there's a lot of them out there, and I couldn't recommend more enough that you look into some sort of automation platform. It's only going to make you more profitable. So, something to think about.
Yeah, I'll take a look at those. Thanks for the recommendation.
Yeah. So as we start to wrap up the interview here, you mentioned your book, The Shatterproof Entrepreneur. Most of my audience are attorneys. We do get some legal tech founders who tune into the show as well. So is that a book that you think maybe they may be interested in, or maybe some of their clients? Like, you want to tell us a little bit about the book?
Yeah, I mean, it goes through the 6 phases of what I call building a shatterproof business. And so it's really from how you build the foundation of the business all the way to the legacy piece at the end. It goes through marketing, through vision, leadership, marketing, sales, building a recurring business model. And it's just stuff that because a lot of lawyers aren't real business minded. They may be thinking, I want to step out from a lot of the firm, start my solo subscription, but they don't really know how to run a business. This is perfect for them, because it's written it's a real easy read for them to kind of get some basic understanding for some things they're going to have to do that they haven't done before in building a successful business. And then if they've got business clients that have had that entrepreneurial seizure and decided, hey, I'm tired of doing roofs for this guy, I'm going to become my own roofing company, they need this book, because they're skipping over a lot of steps. They're going to cause trouble, and it all leads back to us. They need help. Yeah. And so we have the consulting company to do that stuff on top of the legal.
It's available on Amazon, I assume?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. All right. The last substantive question I'll ask you is, there's something like, I'm trying to find a through line between the lawyers like us who have ditched the billable hour. And I've seen a lot of similarities and overlap, and they don't always overlap with each other, but there's usually something different or special about the lawyers who have been able to ditch the time. So ditch billing time. So I'm curious, Scott, to know if there's, like, when I say that, is like, what is the thing that you think that's unique about you that helped you ditch the billable hour?
I think I'm entrepreneurial, and even have long been that way. And so I think differently than regular lawyers do. I also I really like solving problems and getting paid for that value of solving the problem. And in the first 2 years of my law practice, I learned that. I got approached with one of the firm's clients. We're having lunch, and he's like, hey, my parents need to sell their ambulance company. Could you help with that? And I'm like, yeah, I can help with that. And instead of doing a flat fee, we did it on a percentage. And so we went out and found buyers, negotiated the deal, and I got to see for the first time what it looked like to actually get paid for the value we delivered rather than the hours. And I loved it. Mm-hmm. It was kind of intoxicating. I have also done catastrophic injury work and had the same feeling when they weren't paying me for what I was doing. They were paying me for what we get at the end. And to get those hugs and see those tears when you've been able to change their world with and fix some of the problems that were caused by someone else with money, it really affected me. And so I've just always been looking for how can I be on this value equation instead of hours. I hated the hours, but to me, that I now like the subscription much better than contingency. Yeah, you can hit some big licks with a contingency, but for my stress levels, I just like knowing I know every first of the month what's going to come in automatically, and then I can kind of forecast what I can sell based on my past.
Yeah. Also curious to know, because I've seen this through line, though not always, but it's sometimes there, is a first-gen attorney. Are you the first lawyer in your family, or were your parents lawyers or grandparents?
first and only, and my dad was in sales. Yeah.
Yeah. Both my parents are in sales. So there's something to that too, being an entrepreneur and having parents in sales.
I think one other thing might be that I didn't go straight to law school. I got out of law school and went into sales. I sold for AT&T. I've sold general business phones and systems and aftermarket products. And so it just, I think that having some practical business experience, I mean, I was working off and I was working off my kitchen table, printing contracts on dot matrix printers. It just makes me different. Even at law school, I was different because I had real world experience and the other kids in there didn't. They came straight from school and they performed well, but they just viewed everything differently.
Right, right. Oh, no, I whenever I go talk to a law school, I always ask who here this is. You didn't come here fresh out of college, and I see those hands raised, and I tell everybody those are the people you have the most to learn from, other than your professors, and the things you're going to learn from them are going to be more valuable in your practice. So,
Right.
final question is a fun one, and that is, Scott, is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Wow. Yeah, I think it qualifies as a sandwich. It's got bread on two sides. It's got meat in the middle, and you use the same type of condiments you would on, at least I would, on other kinds of sandwich. So yeah, I think it's a sandwich.
All right. Thank you for that. You didn't waffle. You stuck with your answer. I get a lot of waffling on the answer to that question. If people wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
You can, if you want to message me, the best place is Instagram at the Scott Reeb. And then I'm going to set up a special page on the website, reeblaw.com/law subscribed, where they can go straight to that page. They can click a link or DM me, and I'll give them 20 minutes of my time to just talk about the subscription model and how that would fit for them or not fit. And then they can take that and do what they want with it. And then they can also download an ebook that will give them some tools as they're building a new practice.
Well, I love it. I appreciate the resource. Scott Reib, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And that's our show. Thanks again to 650 and Gavel for being sponsors. The best way for others to discover this show is for you to share it with somebody you think would find value from it. Follow me on LinkedIn, since that's where I'm most active on social media, and click the bell towards the top right of my profile to get notified about all of my posts about this podcast and everything else I think is valuable for you to see. To get in touch, message me on LinkedIn or email kurbis@lawsubscribed.com. All links are in the show notes. Until next time, this is Matthew Kurbis with Law Subscribed.